Good evening, everyone. And thank you for joining us. I hope that more people will be joining us over the next minute or two. But I am Jerry Kozine, and on behalf of North Middle School, I want to thank you to our PTO meeting this evening. I'm joined here by my two amazing assistant principals, Ms. Anderson and Ms. Gunning, as well as our PTO co-presidents, Ms. Yee and Ms. Adams. Thank you for being here. And I will allow them to introduce our three department chairs who will be joining us tonight to have a great conversation about academic analysis across the curricula. And thank you for joining us this evening on a night that, again, hopefully we'll be back in the building very soon, welcoming you to North Middle School as your home. Although it is quite foggy out there tonight, so I know it's a little bit creepy. My daughter said it looked like a Scooby-Doo scene outside. So hopefully you're all ensconced in something warm and enjoying this show. And at this point, I want to just thank our PTO and all of our parents for their support as they work with us as partners in learning and education. And we have two great co-presidents, Ms. Margaret Adams and Ms. Carrie Yu, who are always here to support us. So without further ado, I will turn it over to our co-presidents.
Good evening, and thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us tonight. I'm Margaret Adams, and this is Carrie. And as your co-presidents, we would like to thank Dr. Kozine, Ms. Gunning, and Ms. Anderson for everything they do on a daily basis to make sure that our children are happy, safe, and getting the best possible education. Additionally, we want them to know that we appreciate all they are doing during a time that is very challenging for both them and all of us as a community. Tonight's meeting is going to give us an opportunity to better understand how our children are learning to think and write analytically in different subjects in a way that will help them become better writers, both in middle school and beyond. We want to thank Ms. Crisafulli, head of social studies, Ms. Dove, head of the English department, and Ms. Fitberg, head of the science department, for their time and expertise, as well as the administration for helping to put together this amazing presentation. We expect our presentation to last about an hour, and we will have time for questions at the end. Please feel free to type them into the chat box, and at the end of the meeting, Carrie, as always, will do an amazing job to moderate the questions. Carrie, take it away. Carrie?
It appears as though Ms. Yee may be frozen at this point.
Oh, she might. Oh, okay. Well, until she comes back, I will.
Right.
All right, let me keep going until she comes back. Is she back?
No.
Maybe not. Okay. We just wanted to quickly go over a few housekeeping items. I believe we mentioned last time, but we held our first in-person event, our book sale in the brand new library. Our sales amounted to over $7,300 in sales. We are still currently waiting for our sales invoice to calculate our total profit. However, the total sales were higher than they have been in the past few years. Given the fact that we have not been able to raise funds due to COVID, we are truly grateful. January 28th was Holocaust Remembrance Day, and the students were able to watch a live stream presentation where 3 survivors were able to share artifacts and personal testimonies. This presentation was very meaningful and truly enjoyed by the students. It was also live streamed so that parents who wanted to were able to participate as well. The Holocaust Memorial Intolerance Center will share the link with the students as soon as it becomes available. Additionally, oh, Carrie, you're back. She's back.
I'm sorry, I think I lost the connection for a little bit.
You did. I was up to the multicultural celebration, if you want to take over.
Oh, that's great. I'm sorry, I was blank out for a minute. Thank you for taking care of this. Yes, additionally, on January 31st, the Multicultural Club celebrated Lunar New Year throughout our hallways for all students to enjoy. It was really a very cheerful event. Our students enjoyed the performance and celebrated the cultural diversity. with all of us. We're looking forward to the day that this event can be open to parents again and to the community in person. I think that day is coming very soon. Finger crossed. Also, you may have received the email from Ms. Gunning regarding the parent book talk on the book, The Yes Brain, How to Cultivate Courage, Curiosity, and Resilience in Your Child. This is a great topic. I personally love it so much that I can read one book each year to really remind myself. Many parents have already responded. Ms. Gunning, as of this moment, still has a few more copies available. And so parents, if you are interested to read the book, to explore with us, please respond and you can have a copy home for free. And we're going to have the book club talk on March the 3rd. It's still undecided whether it's in person or Zoom, but finger crossed as well. Yes. So Margaret, you'll take over.
Good. Yeah. Finally, as we do before every meeting, we would like to remind everyone that we are always here to help you and administration in any way that we can. Please feel free to message either myself or Carrie or email us at nmsptapay@gmail.com. Additionally, one very important PSA. Please, 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 for the safety of our own children, please do not double park on Polo Road. It is very dangerous, and as we all can imagine, it is an accident waiting to happen. Now, without further ado, we turn it back over to Dr. Kozine.
Thank you, Ms. Yee. Thank you, Ms. Adams, so much for your support. And I didn't know Ms. Adams was going to speak about the double parking, but I do appreciate the shout out there. It's become more prevalent. And again, if those parents that are here, those that are joining us this evening, if you come at 3 o'clock, which is only 10 minutes later, there are no cars out there. So it's much easier. And so I would encourage people to wait until 3 o'clock. Of course, kids can also take, if you're entitled to bus service, you can take the bus. Before going on to this next presentation, I want to go back to what Ms. Adams said regarding the Holocaust Remembrance presentation. I did receive the link today, and there will be a parent blast going out tomorrow to our parents of the actual recorded event and from our school, the one that all of our students had seen. So I got to watch a little bit of it this afternoon after it was sent to me. And again, still so moving through the narrative that was shared with us and really moving for our students. So thank you to the HMTC and again, for our parent body for their support. So tonight's topic comes from a lot of different places. We've been focusing on so much returning back to school. We're moving up to March of 2022, which means we're going to be 2 years into a global pandemic. And as we return students back to school last 2 Septembers ago, we had conversations about the social emotional impact upon our students. We cannot minimize that whatsoever. That's still occurring. Our students are still getting back to what they might consider normal, and hopefully we're on the closer to that than ever before. So we'll continue to focus on making sure our students feel safe and comfortable in school. But that doesn't mean they're not being challenged. It doesn't mean that we're not engaging in real learning in our classrooms. That's the exciting part of middle school, is that you can do so many different things, and you almost have to do a lot of different things with our students because they're teenagers, they're middle schoolers, they want to be engaged. So besides the fact that we're always going to be looking out to make sure that they're comfortable and safe and feel good about themselves in school and about who they are as a person, we want to make sure also that they're being challenged academically and feel confident in their ability to learn. So Ms. Vickberg, Ms. Chris Foley, Ms. Dove, we got together and we talked about, okay, how do we talk about the way that our students are thinking more deeply, more analytically, looking at the content they're receiving in classes and being able to not only evaluate it, to assess it, but then to write about it, to dig deep and tell stories about it based upon evidence. So without further ado, because they've got a lot more to say than I do, I will turn it over to Ms. Dove, who is the Department Chair of English and Reading. So Ms. Dove, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen and we will start the presentation. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to be focusing tonight on academic analysis in English. And in general, in our English classes, our students generate claims and provide text-based support for those claims based upon the novels that they are reading in class, both during class time and at home. And tonight I'm going to be focusing particularly on an argumentative essay assignment that our 8th grade students recently completed. All of our 8th grade students took part in a dystopian unit of study, and the culminating writing activity was this argumentative essay. And during that unit of study, each student read anywhere between 3 and 5 dystopian novels within book clubs, and several dystopian short stories as well. Now, before I jump into a very brief description of the assignment, the writing assignment, I want to just point out that there is a common language and common terms that we are using across curricula, particularly in English, science, and social studies classes. Those terms, some of them are here: claim, evidence, topic sentence, closing sentence. These are all examples of the mutual language that is being taught and being used within our classes, so that the students are getting used to the same type of writing, the same form of writing. The thesis statement is something that is taught and reviewed with our 8th grade students. So you will see that piece take place and take a part in the argumentative essay assignment that I'll be reviewing this evening. So I'm going to jump right into the assignment. We start the writing off with really kind of focusing with the students on the difference between argument writing and persuasive writing. By the time they get to 8th grade, the students are familiar with persuasive writing. They've done it before, but they're not quite sure the next step that they need to take and the requirements that they need to have in order to take their writing from what would be considered persuasive to what would be considered argument writing. And the real difference, as they see as we look at the goals and the claims and the viewpoints, is that the argument writing requires research and requires evidence, and it relies more upon the ethos and the logos as opposed to the pathos. So I'm going to show you a slide here. Argumentative essays rely more on the ethos, and as we know, ethos is appeals to our credibility, and the logos, which of course is the logic and the reasoning, as opposed to appealing to your reader's emotions and making the audience feel a certain way based on your own opinions and the way that you feel. And there are some important terms here. I'm not going to go into detail, but these are some of the terms that are reintroduced to our students before we start this writing assignment. And what you're going to notice is that many of these same terms will be reviewed with Ms. Krista Foley when she goes over her social studies portion of tonight's presentation. Again, these terms are used throughout the different subject areas. Okay, now before we even start this writing assignment, the students are offered a choice. We love to offer our students choices so that they're more vested in what they're learning and what they're doing, what they're reading, what they're writing about it. And in terms of this assignment, we provided the students with 8 topic choices. And for differentiation purposes, the topics here are listed in general in order of difficulty, starting with the more simpler choice, moving on to the more difficult choices. And the students are able to choose the topic that best suits their interests, but also their ability levels. And before we even start any writing, the students are encouraged to brainstorm each topic. And we hope that as they're brainstorming, they really start to determine which of these questions, which of these topics they can really create the best argument for. We always urge our students to really compile their thoughts before they put the pen to the paper or their fingers to the iPad, however it is that they're writing in whichever class it is. So here is a small piece of what an evidence organizer would look like. And the students are asked to create several pages worth of an evidence organizer before they start any drafting. And what you have here is on the left is the pro side, and on the right is the con side. And the students would fill in each side depending on which topic they chose. For example, if you were looking back at our last slide here, one of the topic choices is which character is the strongest hero. So if I were to be completing this evidence organizer for that, I might have the opinion or the belief that Katniss Everdeen from the Hunger Games is the strongest hero. So on my left-hand side of the chart, I would find different examples of evidence from the Hunger Games that would prove that Katniss Everdeen was a strong hero. For any piece of evidence I pull from the novel, I need to include page numbers, chapter numbers, etc. Then on the right-hand side, for my con side, interestingly enough, I have a lot of other options. If I'm going to be talking about Katniss being the strongest hero, for my con side, I might choose to find examples from the Hunger Games that show her in a weakened state as a character. Or I might decide to pick another character from that same novel who is stronger at a certain point in the book. Or I might go even further out of the realm of the Hunger Games and look at one of those other books that I had said I read during this unit of study and talk about how one of those other characters is a stronger hero. And in terms of completing this evidence organizer, in terms of minimum requirements, the students were required to have at least 4 pieces of evidence on our pro side, on our left-hand side of the chart, and at least 2 examples of evidence on the right-hand side, on our con side. And what several students realize as they're completing this evidence organizer, interestingly enough, is that they end up having more evidence on the con side. And then what happens is they end up altering their focus for their essay before they actually begin drafting their body paragraphs. And our hope as educators at the secondary level is that our students think critically. And so reconsidering different perspectives is definitely not a bad thing, particularly when we're doing it so early in the writing process, so that really essentially no time has been wasted and they can really reconsider their viewpoints before they even start drafting those body paragraphs. Okay, and then we jump into the thesis statement, which I had mentioned is something that is introduced to the 8th grade for the first time. And in terms of things that are important with the thesis statement, if you look at step 2 here, the students are asked to figure out 2 overall reasons for their claim that are going to support their claim. And these 2 overall reasons essentially are going to help them to formulate their paragraphs and organize their essay. So if I'm talking again about Katniss Everdeen, maybe my first reason why she's the strongest hero is because she is selfless and she's always putting other characters first. And maybe the second reason is that she remains brave in times that are very scary. Okay, and then I have sort of an idea already of where the direction is going to go for my 2 body paragraphs. And then my step 3 is where it gets really tricky for our 8th graders, because this is also something new for them, is that they need to state a counter argument or a counterclaim. That is because the 3rd body paragraph of this essay is going to be completely composed of the counter argument that is, for most of the students, will be from that con side, that right-hand side of the evidence organizer that we had just showed you. And the reason that the students need to introduce that counterclaim argument in the thesis, which is part of the introductory paragraph, is because if they don't, when our reader gets to that 3rd body paragraph, they're going to be very confused as to why the direction of this essay quickly changed. Okay, the next step would then be drafting our body paragraphs. And the students would do this twice, obviously, first for the first body paragraph, then for the second body paragraph. And they begin with an argument, which becomes that topic sentence, that introductory sentence, where they combine their claim and their first argument. So in this case, I might say that Katniss Everdeen from the Hunger Games is the strongest hero because she is selfless. And then I go and I include in my boxes evidence from the novel to support that claim. And then for each piece of evidence, I need to elaborate to support how my argument is valid and links back to my thesis statement. You'll notice here in blue, I've written that all evidence requires proper citation. We go through proper citations and format with the students. And for each piece of evidence that they include in their body paragraph, they have to include a direct quotation from the text. Okay, so in this case, I would need to pull direct quotations from the Hunger Games text. And in terms of requirements, I need 2 pieces of evidence per body paragraph. So I need 2 direct quotations per body paragraph at a minimum. Okay, then we get into our counter argument paragraph. And this is, again, where the students really need to do some critical thinking. And they have to think about what people might say if they didn't agree with that concept that Katniss is the strongest hero, what would their argument be? They go back to the con side of their evidence organizer, okay? And they come up with a couple of ideas, and they end up focusing only on one of those ideas because they don't want to make this counter argument paragraph too strong. Remember, it's the counter argument. But then they have to still find time to find a way to disprove that belief, and again, refocus on their own claim. Okay, so again, this requires including direct quotation and examples from the text. Okay, and again, writing the counter argument paragraph builds into that critical thinking that I had mentioned earlier, where students are really considering and evaluating different perspectives and making some connections, and in some terms, real world connections. I apologize for the small font here, but I wanted to fill in, make sure I included the entire essay outline for you here. So this is what the requirements looked like for the 5 paragraphs, which include an introduction and conclusion. And I just want to point out here that the green font is where you would see the students were required to include those direct quotations. Again, primarily, most of the writing that the students are doing in our English classes is text-based, evidence-based, just like you will also see coming up in social studies and in science as well. Now, throughout the process of this writing activity, the students are given the opportunity to work with partners, with peers, and to share their writing and to help each other out. And right before final submission, the students end up picking one partner or being assigned one partner, depending on the teacher, to complete peer editing review checklists. And this assignment or this activity is done during class time in 3 separate rounds of revisions. This would be a sample round 3, where the students are working at the very end of this process of spoofing up their essay. And it might require some substituting of words, looking for higher level vocabulary, removing or replacing conjunctions and pronouns, making sure that all of the parts of the essay are properly cited, particularly their direct quotations, etc. And then, oh, sorry, skipped a slide. Okay, I wanted to share with you, I don't have time to share an entire sample argumentative essay with you, but what I'd like to do is share just a sample introduction. And that is what we have here on the screen, which I'm going to read to you. What I do want to point out is that this sample introduction, this particular student chose to answer the topic question, which book has the most relevant message? Which, if you remember, when I showed you the list of choices, those 8 choices, if you recall, this was one of the lower questions on the list, meaning it was considered higher level and it's a more difficult topic choice. This particular question requires a student to make a clear connection between the text or texts that he or she read and the real world. Okay, so I'm going to quickly read this paragraph to you, and that'll be it for me. She was just 16 and not yet beautiful. She was too young for beauty. Her form was not developed. She would probably gain 2 or 3 inches in height, and her face, though exquisitely modeled, wanted the refining which comes either from a multitude of complex emotions or is given at once by some great heart sorrow. Of course, we have our citation there. In today's society, most individuals first judge someone by their appearance. Because of the media's influence on teenage girls, plastic surgery numbers are dramatically rising. Everyone desires to look the same, to have a smaller nose, bigger eyes, a sharper jawline, fuller lips, skinnier limbs, and a curvier body. Trying to fit into toxic beauty standards by endeavoring to look like influencers on social media is harmful and practically impossible. Will this madness stop before our world becomes so twisted that it mirrors that of The Uglies? In Uglies by Scott Westerfield, plastic surgery is a mandatory procedure. Underage citizens have no motivation in life other than reaching the age to undergo that procedure. Nearly all of the teenage characters who haven't yet received the surgery are severely insecure. The message of this dystopian novel is that beauty is subjective. You don't have to look a certain way to be considered beautiful, and you shouldn't change your appearance for the validation of others. Uglies has the most relevant message because it was relatable to today's world, and the message will remain appropriate in the future. However, some may say, oh my gosh, however, some may say that other dystopian novels have a more relevant message, like The Maze Runner by James Dasher. Okay, so essentially, and again, that was written by a student, not by me. That was an example of the introductory paragraph just for the argumentative essay for that particular question relating to which of the books, which of the novels the student read had the most relevant message. So that would be one of the higher level writing assignment choices that the students had. And again, it all goes back to that text-based evidence research type of writing style that you will also see as my peers are going to share for science and social studies. So without further ado, I'm going to turn the floor over to Ms. Crisafulli.
There we go. I'm Patty Crisafulli, the Social Studies Department Head, and also still a middle school parent. So thank you for taking some time tonight. We're always very proud of what your children are doing and happy to share the what's happening in each of our classes. And as Ms. Dove was speaking, I was just thinking how aligned we are, and also how funny it is that sometimes the students don't realize it. Sometimes at the end of 8th grade, when we're saying the exact same words, they realize that they've done this before, but they are getting these skills layered in throughout many subjects, which really just strengthens them all around. So in grade 6 in social studies, we're dealing with ancient civilizations, and in grade 7 and 8, we're dealing in US history, and I've sort of pulled examples from both. So it's clear to just say those two things, but I thought the bottom graphic is really more like what's going on in our heads at all times. We are asking students to think about being citizens, to look at community, to think about economics, making decisions, think about the world around them, the past, the present. There's a lot going on in social studies. So we do want to clarify and give them the skills to handle all that. Oops. So social studies skill development, I'm fond of saying, and some of the other teachers do too, that these are life skills, not just for a class or for a period in one grade. Because if we can have students develop their ability to think critically, to analyze information, to have educated opinions, and then to be able to articulate, to express themselves verbally with writing, to communicate, again, verbally or through writing, and to connect to each other. Those really are skills that go so far beyond the classroom. Academically, when we're going over these skills and teaching them how to respond to different challenges by becoming stronger readers, stronger writers, stronger communicators, they do have more long-term success because these same challenges are going to come up again and again. And it is very typical for a middle school child to want to avoid sometimes a challenge or to be intimidated or not sure, a little insecure. And that's okay, because we're going to break everything down into small pieces and stretch them a little bit more each time. And maybe something that they didn't master at the beginning of 7th grade seems easier in the beginning of 8th grade. So you'll see repetition from year to year as well. And overall, we're really in social studies switching, well, not really switching, but encouraging students to go beyond memorization. It's great if you can memorize facts. It's more meaningful to be able to explain why that fact matters. So we're constantly saying, what is it? And then why does it matter? And sometimes we'll just ask a quick check when students are writing a paragraph. Did you explain what it is? Did you say why it matters? So that's what we're looking for. And overall, I know that we don't have math here tonight, and this is about as mathematical as I'll get. If we're analyzing documents plus reading comprehension, we lead ourselves to evidence-based writing. And that's exactly what you just saw with Ms. Dove, and that's exactly what we're constantly doing, except that it's not always text that we're looking at. So it could be maps or charts or graphs or photographs, quotes, cartoons, anything can be a document Students learn the difference between a primary source and a secondary source. And then we have these outside information when we're getting in our longer, whether we're using our Discovery Ed textbook or having longer assignments based on articles and books. And all of that is leading to our evidence-based writing. So whatever they're sharing with us, we want to know where it came from. And the connection is constantly, here's the knowledge that I already have, here's something new that I see. What does it mean when I put them together? So now you really know that English and social studies are linked, because the best and clearest outline I could get from social studies was to steal from the College Board for English. But it really is exactly the same skill. So whether you're starting in 6th grade, or if you have older children who are hitting AP, English, or social studies, it literally is the exact same skill. It looks cuter in middle school because we tend to color it. But this idea of soaping what you read, soaping a document, speaker, occasion, audience, and purpose, we introduce it and then we go over it again and again, and the students will just pick up and continue in all of their research, Regents or AP level classes. So for every document, and documents can be overwhelming at times, they'll get lengthier, or it's something that you're not at all familiar with. We just try and figure out who is the speaker, what's the occasion, who is this directed at, and what's the purpose. If we can do those 4 things, that really helps us think maybe we have something to say about this document. As we go on, then we start to think about the subject overall and the tone. Those are a little bit more sophisticated, but it really is, that skill set is going to be used over and over and over again. So when we introduce it on the middle level, we know that it's going to be applicable for high school and college, and really it works for any kind of document that you need to pull apart. So back to where we're comfortable, away from the College Board for a minute, with our colored graphic soaping. Sometimes we have the students do this to their own work. Sometimes we do it to different documents. One of the nice things about the iPad is we can make things different colors all over the place. In the old days, we were handing out lots of highlighters. So if we were taking a look at this document, which all of our 7th graders, or many of our 7th graders had a piece of this document on their recent midterm, we would pull it apart and we look for the speaker, and we find it. So we match the colors up. We look for the occasion, we look for the audience, we look for the purpose. We really want to figure out how much do we know about this document, because that gives us things to write. And then normally if a student had a graphic organizer like this, they'd be adding whatever else they know. So it's 1775, why are they talking about liberty? Well, they're going to make a connection, most of them, to England or to the Patriots or to the Revolution. So there would be some outside information that might be triggered by breaking this document down a little bit. But even the most complicated document, most students are able to find 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, and eventually all 6 of these aspects, because we just keep practicing this skill over and over and over again. Then what do we do with all this information? Excuse me. There we go. Sometimes we have multiple documents at the same time. So then we need to think, okay, if I've broken down one document, what if I have more than one document? And just to vary it up, I went to 6th grade, because all of our 6th grade classes ultimately will be looking at ancient Egypt. So the relationships between documents, we generally break them down into these 4 categories. Cause and effect. So if I was looking at the document of the man who's dipping the shaduf into the water, and then I'm looking at harvesting in the fields, I would see a cause and effect relationship. Because you can irrigate, you're able to harvest. And I'd be able to explain that this document by the river is the cause for this document of the harvest. And again, it's something we'd practice over and over again, because cause and effect is something we want to understand for many reasons in history. Sometimes we're just comparing them. Students get so used to having one of these questions that they're very excited about compare and contrast, because by far it's the easiest one to answer. You're either just saying what's the same or what's different. So if we were looking at, this document and then down here at the canal, we could say, oh, there's more than one way to irrigate the fields, and they use two different strategies. And that's, students are happy to see that kind of a question. Historical context is a little bit more difficult because it's requiring you to add information to what you already see. So then you would have to know that we're irrigating because Egypt is predominantly dry, but closer to the Nile River. We want to access that water and irrigate more land so that we can have farming, whatever they're going to say. But again, we'd be introducing documents while we're introducing material, and hope that they would make that connection. And then last, we see change over time. So if we were looking at ancient irrigation and modern irrigation, well, not modern irrigation, but a more modern picture, still using some of those same systems. And we would ask why we think that happens, and what are we learning? So we've moved from one document to pairs of documents, and it requires a different set of skills. And again, we'll be doing it over and over each year, and the documents will get a little more sophisticated, and their analysis gets a little more sophisticated. Sorry about that. When we have a lot of documents together, we don't really want them all just rambling around in our heads. So we do have a framework developed by New York State called Enduring Issues, based on enduring issues. And I don't want to say that New York State created enduring issues, because we know these are problems that human civilizations have faced over time. It's just that New York State is looking for students to be able to write about enduring issues in social studies in a way that maybe they weren't asking for 10 years ago. What are enduring issues? The list is very flexible. So you might see a list like this one that says conflict, or you might see one that says war, or you might see one that says dissension. You might see one that says civil rights, or one that says human rights, or one that says injustice, or one that says justice. The list is fluid, and students add to it, which they really like. So even on the Regents exams, it will say, connect to these issues or any other that you can prove. So just as Ms. Dove was saying, students are encouraged to think about what they're reading, think about what they're seeing, and see the pattern that they see. If they can justify their pattern and connect it to a larger pattern in society, that's really what we're hoping for. So students are connecting the documents to each other, they connect the documents to what they already know, and they connect the documents to what they're living through. In some ways, it may seem grim, teaching 8th grade last year and doing the influenza pandemic at the turn of the century, 100 years ago or so, and then looking at COVID. But some of the students really took something positive about the fact that we could have gotten through something with the technology we had 100 years ago. And how people got through that, and what they were able to create and generate in the 20s, right after that horrible influenza epidemic. And with my 8th graders last year, when we were looking at change over time, or over 100 years, how do we deal with this? They got a lot of inspiration about all of the cultural shifts that happened in the 1920s, and the technological shifts that happened after this period of war and disease. So that was really an interesting thing to see their writing about enduring issues last year. So that's what we're looking for. Ultimately, good writing in social studies reflects knowledge of documents, knowledge of history, a possible connection to a current event if they can make it, in this framework of an enduring issue, a problem that has been seen in civilization over and over again. So if we were in person, I would make you all answer these questions, but I will tell you what students say instead. So if we had this image of the man on the moon, a man on the moon, who, when we were looking, this is actually from NASA, from the Smithsonian, and then we see our list of enduring issues, you might have an answer that popped right into your mind. And a lot of students would say technology, but other students might say power, And they would explain how getting to the moon, having the US on the moon shows a certain amount of power. And another student might say human environment interaction, because look at everything we had to do to be able to function in this environment. And another student might say it's culture and beliefs, because this was a national goal and the space race was crazy and it dominated everything in society. There's no wrong answer if you can justify based on evidence the issue that you would connect to this image. And it does make students who like to have a right answer crazy. So if you're coming into social studies class thinking that you can memorize it, that you can nail it, and here's going to be the 8 answers I give, it's not going to work that way, because you can give a right answer and everyone in the class could give a right answer, and it might be 24 different correct answers. And widening your perspective and understanding how someone else looked at the very same thing you did and came to a different conclusion is a great exercise. We have a lot of discussion in class. We have a lot of discussion about writing. And I will also say it reduces plagiarism. There's no reason to look for somebody else's answer, because you have to write what you know and understand. And in the same way that Ms. Dove said, you know, you might get all of your notes out there and then switch and say, wait, it's this character. Students have the same thing when they're writing about an issue, because they were so sure it's technology, but now power starts to sound pretty good. So we're encouraging them to write the one that resonates with them based on the knowledge that they have. And then if you saw a second document from one of my favorite people, don't sit down and wait for the opportunities to come, get up and make them, who's Madam C.J. Walker's quote, then again, you'd think, oh, wait, now I'm going to go back to technology, because that does connect both of them. Because I sort of think that hers might be connected to power, but I think it's a little bit stronger for technology. And students would really have to think about the knowledge that they have and which answer they think they can support the best. So there is a lot of individual thought. And again, if we had been going through the 20th century together, they would have information about Madam C.J. Walker from outside. So maybe they would be talking about being an African-American businesswoman, and maybe they would be talking about challenges and doing something no one has done before, which they could relate to going to the moon as a challenge that no one had done before. They come up with some really interesting answers. And ultimately, for an essay, they're going to be looking at 7 or 8 documents and making a connection among 4 of them. The only difference really between 6th grade and 12th grade is the number of documents they're expected to make connections among. And honestly, more documents makes it easier to write, because it's a little prompt saying, hey, remember me? Remember the space race? Remember technology? It's easier than looking at a blank page and having to come up with a thematic essay. So what does it look like? Well, this is what it looks like. I took pictures of them when they were doing it. This is an 8th grade class that's working on document-based research in our library. So if you hadn't had a chance to come in for the book sale, I thought it would be a nice shout out to our library, which was newly renovated. And then this is a 7th grade class on the other side. I know that you can't really see what they're doing, but trust me, they were all excited to be in the library because they enjoy being out of the room as well. Ultimately, we'd like all our students to be able to write well about multiple documents and connect it to an issue. And we're looking for analysis, not just describing, but analyzing what that document means, and then making a conclusion. And very similar to English, their conclusions will vary even looking at the same sources. And that's okay. We want them to be able to support their conclusions with evidence. And then we take a look always, every day, any lesson that you would walk into in a social studies class, there's document analysis, it's embedded in our notes, it's in our homework, our classwork, it's on their tests. Sometimes it's on research. All of our 8th grade will be doing research. 2 of the teachers have been in already, and 2 are scheduled to go in soon. The 7th grade, 1 has done, 1 is in the library now, and 1 did a more contemporary research with news. And 6th grade We'll probably get in the spring, but we'll see, because 6th grade skills are developing slightly differently than they normally do with the time out. Every student, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade took a midterm. Every student will take a final that's document-based writing. One of the best things about the midterm was the reflection that we asked the kids to do after. You know, were you nervous going in? How did you feel after? And a student, one of my favorite answers was, I was really nervous until I looked at it a second time, and then I remembered what I knew and the words began to flow. And that's a great thing, because there were 2 documents that they had never seen, that for all the kids, that's what they had to write about. So the fact that you can think about it, look at it, and then let it flow, that's the kind of writing and thinking that we hope to see more of. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Zahava Vitberg, and I'm the Science Department Chair. Let me just share my screen. Okay, so our goal in the Science Department is to provide students with a strong science education that equips students with the ability to think critically, analyze information, and have students be able to work collaboratively with their peers. These are all skills that you've heard, you know, Mrs. Dove is working on with the English department, Ms. Christopherly is working on with social studies, and these are all skills that will serve our students throughout their education and professional lives. We are thrilled to have your children back in our physical classrooms every day. And this year in science, we have reintroduced hands-on authentic activities back into our classroom. Our classrooms are vibrant learning communities where students are actively engaged in their learning, as seen in these pictures. This year, our 6th graders are focused primarily on ecology and the cycling of matter and energy in ecosystems. Our 7th graders are covering topics in life science, including the structure and function of cells, body systems, genetics. And our 8th graders are enrolled in Regents Earth Science, covering topics such as Earth's place in space, meteorology, and geology. So the science standards identify 8 specific skills or science and engineering practices students are to use in our classroom while they develop their understanding of the science content. These science and engineering practices, which are listed on the screen, are the same behaviors that professional scientists use to answer questions and engineers use to solve real-world problems. These practices help our students develop a deeper understanding of science beyond memorizing facts. Instead of having our students knowing science, they are also doing science. They are not at the level of a professional scientist just yet, but rather we are building these skills to get them there. So while the science and engineering practices engage students in the exercise of science, where students are gathering data and information, drawing models, solving equations, asking questions, we also have what's called the cross-cutting concepts. And the cross-cutting concepts provide techniques for students to process and think about the data and information they're presented. Just like Ms. Christopherly spoke about how students in social studies analyze documents by looking at the cause and effect, the patterns, we too in science ask students to analyze evidence in a similar manner. The ways in which teachers frame questions using these cross-cutting concepts helps the students focus on key aspects of an activity or what to zone in on and focus on when they're looking at graphs, or when they're looking at scientific documents, and help them come to the desired understanding. So we may give kids graphs and say, you know, what patterns do you observe? Or recently, actually in 6th and 8th grade, they recently both did a phase change lab where they witnessed, there was a demonstration and they witnessed solids changing into liquids and then into gases. And we spoke about like, what effect does adding heat energy to the system cause the observed changes? So it's just a way of, we use these terms on this diagram to help kids with a common language. We're using mutual terms across 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, as well as in social studies and other disciplines to get kids thinking in a certain way. So the science curriculum reinforces many of the critical thinking skills you've heard tonight. Many of the critical thinking skills that they're practicing and learning in both English and social studies are reinforced within the science classroom. One science and engineering practice I want to focus on tonight is engaging in argument from evidence. You have already heard tonight how the skill is utilized in English and social studies, and now how it's reinforced in science. So in science, we speak about claim evidence reasoning, or the students know it more as CER. But claim evidence reasoning is one way we help students in science form written arguments and to think like a scientist. So claim evidence reasoning is just a writing strategy that can help develop a student's analytical thinking and argumentative writing skills. So in science, CER tasks start with an open-ended question, usually posed by the teacher. The question is framed in a way that forces students to take a stand or support a single argument. Students then make a claim or statement that answers the question. But before they do that, they're provided with opportunities to collaborate, collect and make sense of data or information, perform investigations, and the data that they come up with supports a claim is their evidence. Appropriate evidence may be qualitative or quantitative, and it should be substantial enough to support the claim. Typically, when we're doing activities like this, after they make a claim, we ask for usually 2 to 4 pieces of evidence to support their claim. Evidence can come from labs, experiments, videos, scientific texts, graphs, simulations, teacher demonstrations, a whole slew of sources. And then reasoning is where students provide the why, where students justify how their evidence supports their claim. So we know, go back a slide. We know argumentative writing is a skill that takes practice. We do not expect students to be experts in 6th, 7th, or even 8th grade. So we provide our students with models, support, and graphic organizers like the one on the screen. So some of the things we have asked our students to think about or to look at data and make claims are listed on the right-hand side. So in 6th grade, during ecology, we had students look at what type of relationships wolves and rabbits have in an ecosystem and how they affect each other. We have also looked at what happens to substances when they are heated, and students have conducted various investigations. In one of the 6th grade classes, they heated up metal over a Bunsen burner, and they watched how, originally they took a ball and tried making it go through a metal ring, and it didn't go fit through. But then when they heated the ring up, the ball was then able to go through. So why did that happen? Well, when you heat something up, it expands. They were also watched a teacher demonstration of going through phase changes. Take a piece of ice, you add heat energy to it. What happens to it? It first becomes a liquid, then it becomes a gas. In 7th grade, they focused primarily on living things. One of our 7th grade teachers recently did a claim evidence reasoning where students had to make a claim. Can one organ system affect the function of another organ system? And they had to provide evidence from notes, from readings on what they thought. In 8th grade, a couple examples, we looked, is the Earth a perfect sphere? And students looked at, they had to do some math, but they had to look at comparing like the polar diameter to the equatorial diameter. They looked at gravitational readings around the Earth to make their claim. During our unit on mapping, we talked about, is the Bermuda Triangle dangerous? We looked at where there are all these different geologic hazards going on. We plotted where we were doing latitude and longitude, and we plotted where are there, plane crashes and sunken ships, and we made a claim based on that. And we also, another example was, what is the safest route to the top of Mount Everest? We were all being adventurers and going, exploring. And we did that during a unit on topographic maps. and students looked at the different geological features on the Earth's surface, as well as solving for contour interval and gradient and all things that are part of our earth science curriculum. Here's just another example. This was actually on an assessment for one of our 7th grade classes. They were given a picture of an unknown specimen, and it said, use evidence summarized in the table from the previous slide. They had information about what was a plant cell and what was an animal cell. And they had to figure out this unknown specimen. Was it a plant-like animal, or was it an animal-like species? And they had to make a claim, they had to provide evidence, and they had to explain their reasoning. In earth science, we took information. They were given all sorts of charts and readings about Mars. And in groups, they had to speak about, is life sustainable on Mars? You know, could we go there one day and could we survive? And they had to speak as a group and come to a consensus together and fill out this claim evidence reasoning. Here's an example of, it's actually a Regents level question. This does show up on the Regents exam. And it's the same claim evidence reasoning. Students were given station models. And these are how meteorologists, weather men and ladies, report in data about the current weather conditions. And they had to look and decide which station model out of the 4 of these is representing a blizzard in Great Neck. So for this one, they would see the upper right-hand one. And I know you all know this, but that was the right answer. The upper right-hand one, and they could say, oh, the symbol for snow is there. The air temperature and the dew point are both 24 degrees. It's 100% overcast. And then they'd explain, you know, in order to be a blizzard, how all of this information, evidence supports, yes, in fact, that the upper right-hand corner one is a blizzard. Okay, so these are just some examples, but we do claim evidence reasoning in all 3 grades. It's not these lengthy essays that English is doing or even social studies is doing, but we are using the same, we are using the same vocabulary. We are using the same, hold on, I just lost it. We are using the same vocabulary. We are using the same ideas. We're asking them to do the same skills as the other departments. So sitting in our classroom at North Middle School, there's no doubt we have the future scientists, engineers, doctors, and they all need to engage in argument when building prototypes, discovering cures and advancements in medicine, designing solutions to problems, you know, presenting patients with the best possible treatment plan. And it really is starting in middle school. We are helping them develop those skills. This is a skill we will continue to work on throughout 6th, 7th, 8th grade, and they will continue to develop throughout high school. I have to just put a plug out there. These are all pictures of your students currently from this school year. And as you can see, they are actively engaged in their learning experience. But to see more pictures of all the fabulous things that your children are doing, not only in science, but English, math, social studies, and all their classes and all their extracurriculars, please make sure to check out our school's Facebook page, which is updated regularly. And make sure to tell your friends, you know, tell all the parents to check it out. And also, I know this tonight was a lot of information, valuable information, a great insight into what your students are doing in school. But if you have any questions at any time, please pick up a phone, call one of us, call your child's teacher. We all would be happy to discuss curriculum with you, any of your concerns you may have, share ideas. We want to be able to have a two-way conversation because we're all here to help our students, your children, you know, be able to be the best critical thinkers possible and to develop great skills, not just for our class, but for high school, college, and beyond. So thank you. Dr. Kozan.
Thank you, Ms. Wittberg. Could you stop the share at this point?
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you, Ms. Fitberg, Ms. Dove, Ms. Crisafulli. As I'm sitting here listening to the three of you, I know I had an amazing middle school experience, but I don't know if the rigor was like this. I'm thinking about the requirements you've all spoken about. I think my daughter Megan really did well with the argumentative essay because she's ready to argue about anything. But just listening to enduring issues, and I was in the class that Ms. Wittberg spoke about when is life sustainable on Mars, and I got to see the students really jump into that and argue with each other and discuss why or why not. And terraforming was discussed. I am so proud of North Middle School this evening and proud of our students for what they are able to do and the conversations they're able to have, and also the depth that they are able to look at documents, to look at novels and say, okay, where's the proof? How can I show what I'm trying to say here? So Ms. Crisafulli, Ms. Dove, Ms. Wittberg, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with us and sharing the, what's going on in your department's classrooms. It was a great evening.
Yes, thank you very much, Ms. Crisafulli, Ms. Dove, and Ms. Wittberg. I like it that science is used to do experiment on things related to Great Neck. I remember 2 years ago, my older son's science project is related to some specimen that he collected from a lake in Great Neck. And that was, the details are too complicated, but it was very interesting. And for the English and social science, I like it that, we connect the mindset, reading, writing, critical thinking, and the powerful expression. All those are really useful lifelong skills for the children. And I, agree with Dr. Kozine that I feel that my son is going to put what he learns from school to use at home. First with the persuasive argument, he wrote something like why he should be given unlimited screen time. Now with this new skill set of argumentative writing, I'm not sure what he will come up with. I need to update my toolbox to be able to debate with him in the future. And thank you very much for your guidance, for sharing. And, I feel very comfortable and very grateful that our children are, getting the education, best education in North Middle School. And so far, I do not see any questions in the question box. You amazed all of us, I guess.
As Ms. Wittberg said, please always reach out to the teacher, reach out to the department chair, reach out to building level administration. We have an incredible, resourceful PTO. Our co-presidents are available at all times, but we truly are in this together. And at the end of the day, we're all advocating for the same thing, for the success of our children, your children. We want them to be the very best learners that they can be, and along the journey to enjoy it, to really enjoy what they're doing. When I saw Ms. Wittberg's pictures of the kids in science, I mean, that's what it's all about, is learning and discovering. And we were doing that in all of our classrooms on a daily basis at North Middle School. And that's to the great support of our community, our parents, and our students who really are just excited to be in school. So we are extremely grateful for your trust in us and allowing us to spend time with your kids every day.
I just want to add one thing. During the midterm, I know Ms. Crisafulli mentioned that everybody had, all grades had a midterm. My son had the enduring issues midterm. And when he came home and showed it to me, I was very impressed because with what he had to say and what, with the rubric and the grades that, or the credit that he was given, because to be honest, I didn't know that he was going to select what he was going to select and what he was going to write about. I'm not saying that he wouldn't, but I was really impressed with what he told me he wrote about. So thank you. As far as Ms. Wittberg, as far as the, would I have known the blizzard in Great Neck? Absolutely not.
Oh, you would. Give yourself credit now.
And I feel like I went to a good high school, but no. So thank you for teaching our kids that. So thank you all for what you're doing. We really do appreciate it. And I know our kids are going to be better for it.
Right. Ms. Yee, I just see the one question was a thank you. So I want to thank our parent body for being here this evening. I want to thank once again, Ms. Dove, Ms. Fibberg, Ms. Crisafulli for sharing your time with us and also sharing your expertise and your passion. To Ms. Anderson and Ms. Gunning, I can't say thank you enough to the two of you, and to Ms. Adams and Ms. Yee and the rest of our PTO and our parent body. Thank you for the support, and we hope you enjoyed this evening's discussion. If there's other things you'd like to speak about, please reach out to the PTO or to us, and we can see if we can arrange another meeting around that. Ms. Yee, I did see there was one question that came in. If we want to finish that one, it's one more thank you. So we'll leave on a thank you, everyone. Have an amazing evening. Be safe and be well. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.
Bye.